What's going on, guys? Mackenzie Long here. Why getting better by 1% daily is much better than trying to do it all at once, because change doesn't happen overnight. If you guys don't know who I am, my name is Mackenzie Long. I've been teaching people how money works. It's something that isn't taught in schools, which means that most people are financially illiterate, meaning they make lots of mistakes when it comes to money, and they're oftentimes being taken advantage of. The lack of financial literacy is a huge problem in our society, and I love that we have the solution to that. And obviously, when you're solving big problems, there's lots of opportunity, there's lots of money to be made. But the really cool part is now recruiting hundreds of agents and having thousands of clients is that you start to see some common things amongst people. And one of those has to do with change. Because that's something that we're all looking to do. We all, at least I think most of us, want to get better in our life. We want to get better in our faith. We want to get better with our family. We want to get better in our finances, in our fitness, and obviously in our fun. And the process of doing this means that we need to get better. And it's easy to make a decision. We can make decisions pretty quickly. However, to actually accommodate for those decisions, it takes time to be able to do that. Because you can go to a big event or you can meet somebody new and it can change your entire perspective on things, and you can make that decision to change your life very quickly, but the decision isn't the same as actually doing the things that you need to do to be able to change. Lasting change doesn't really happen that way. It happens over a period of time. Like getting people to hit the like button. It takes time in trading to be able to get people to hit the like button. Come on, if I got you to laugh, smash the like button. It helps with the algorithm. I would really appreciate it. And it helps to get these videos out. And so this is really why most New Year's resolutions will fail, because people wait until the end of the year, then they make a decision because they want to make a change. However, the challenge is making the change is different than making the decision. And to give you a really interesting piece of psychology here is there's something that's fascinating that happens. And this is why most people will quit on their goals or their New Year's resolutions, is because the decision is fast, but the actual changes to make it happen take time. And psychologists got together and they've been studying this for a long time, or they've been studying different parts of the brain and how they function with all of this and wanting to be able to have a better life. And part of it, what they found was very interesting to me, and you've probably realized it in your life. And that's if somebody can't hit the majority of a goal, they would rather do none of it. So basically what they did in some of these studies, or they had some psychologists and they were helping people basically change some things in their life. And they would ask them some questions of, basically what their goals were and what they wanted to accomplish. And then they would help them kind of lay out a little bit of a plan for that. And then they would track them as they were going to accomplish these goals. And this happened in a series of many different people, but one of them that kind of stood out to me the most was this lady who her ideal goal was that she wanted to work out 5 times a week. So she starts kind of on this plan. Now, obviously, she didn't do a lot of preparation for it like most of us do. We just have this decision that we want to do something, and then we kind of start trying to enact it. And basically what happens is they're tracking over time. Maybe the first week or two, she was able to do 5 times a week. And then what happens is, because of her schedule, some things came up, whatever it might have been, that there were some days that she wasn't able to do it, but she was pretty effectively able to do 2 or 3 times a week. The challenge was she ended up doing none of it. And this was true for a whole bunch of the people that they were tracking. And not just to do with workouts, but in whatever goal it was that they were trying to accomplish. And so basically they suggested to them, well, why don't you, instead of trying to do the 5 times a week, because right now with the things that you have going on, that's not effective, you're not able to meet that goal. Why don't we change the goal to being 2 or 3 times a week, because you can consistently hit that goal? And what's interesting and what they found in psychology was that a lot of people, if that original goal was 5, and that's really what they wanted to do, if they couldn't hit the majority of it, they would do none of it, which is fascinating to me. But it also made me realize that it's entirely accurate. That oftentimes if we set a goal, if we're not reaching that goal, then we will oftentimes pull back. And what's really fascinating on that is helping hundreds of people become entrepreneurs and thousands of clients of people who are starting to change their savings habits. There's a lot of this that happens. I also have a lot of friends who are nurses or doctors, and they will have somebody who comes in who has lung cancer and they're supposed to stop smoking, but they won't stop smoking. Or people are signing up for the gym, but they never actually end up following through and going to the gym. So why is it that that happens? Why don't we? And then in my business, in both business and in savings, I see that all the time. Somebody will set a goal maybe to make 6 figures part-time, or maybe to double their income, or maybe they want to save $600 a month. And so they'll start trying to do that. They will do pretty well for a while, but then something happens. Maybe they overestimated what they could actually do, maybe as far as a time commitment, or maybe how much extra money they had. They realized some things in the process, and then they kind of had to cut that back. And then we go back and we review maybe 6 months or a year later. And if they had continued with it, but they hadn't hit their goals, oftentimes people were wanting to quit doing it at all. So maybe they did 50 or 75% of what they had planned on doing. Maybe instead of making 6 figures part-time, they made $50,000 part-time or $60,000 part-time. They were upset with that, and that was really interesting to me. Or instead of saving $600 a month, they ended up saving $300 a month consistently. But at the end, after a year or so, looking back at that, they didn't feel like they had accomplished their goal. Not only that, but on top of it, they almost felt like it was pointless to do even the 300 or make 50,000 part-time, because their goal was to make 100,000 or to save $600 a month. Now, part of me wants to wonder, or my brain kind of goes in this way. I go, well, I wonder if that has something to do with the school system and the way that we're graded on the things that we do, right? Because, and this is kind of true in life as well, in the way that we help people financially and people who need resources and those kinds of things. It's very interesting. It's almost like a make it or don't make it type of thought process, right? Like if you need assistance from the government, you get the assistance until you start actually trying again. But then your trying is like just barely or right on the line of where you were if you didn't try. So you can not try and get compensated X amount, or you can try and you can struggle and get compensated the same amount. And so of course people will kind of go back into, if I don't have to do anything, I get compensated the same amount. Or thinking about school, well, you know, if in a class you're going to get a 50 or 60%, if you're not going to pass the class, if you're not going to get an A or B, well, then why even finish the class? Like an F, a 20% or 0% F is the same as a 50% F, right? So I wonder if that has something to do with the psychology of this, in that if you're not getting an A or B, if you're not getting 80 or 90%, if you're hitting under that, then basically you're failing anyway. Which is amazing to me, because these people had never made $50,000 part-time. They had never consistently saved $300 a month or $3,600 a year. But because they didn't hit the goal of what they wanted to, they didn't get an A or B, they generally just dropped out, or at least wanted to drop out without coaching. But what's interesting about life is almost the exact opposite. It's very rare that you set a goal and you hit it 100% the way that you expected to. And if it is, it means you're usually not stretching towards a goal anyway. If in life you can hit 50 to 75% of your goals every time you set a goal, and you're constantly stretching yourself, you're going to crush it. You will end up being miles ahead of where you expected to be. The challenge is we feel like we're failing when we don't hit our goal all of the way. And I think maybe if we tie it onto the formal education, and I don't want to put that much pressure on them. We blame almost everything on them and their fault. And they do a tremendous job, right? Like we would probably not be able to communicate very well if we didn't go to school or do basic things. And so I think that's very important. But I wonder if there's something in that system that makes it very challenging for people to get into business, to be entrepreneurial, because that's literally what life is. And so if you needed that message today, I hope that hits home, that you don't need to be hitting 100% of your goals. And sometimes you will, and sometimes you won't, but it's more the progress that you're making to become that person. And maybe it takes you a little bit longer than what you thought, but quitting will never get you to the goal. And unfortunately, that seems to be people's mentality a lot of the time. And so here's why this becomes important, is that if you don't have a coach, if you don't have a mentor, if you don't have somebody helping you in the areas of your faith and your family, your finances, your fitness, and your fun, then chances are you might hit 50 or 75% of your goal, but your psychology believes that you failed to do that, even though it's better than you've ever done before. It's thousands of dollars more than you've ever saved before. It's tens of thousands of dollars more than you've ever made before. But because it wasn't 90 or 100% of the goal, you feel like you're failing. And what I've noticed is most people who are trying to be accountable to themselves, they don't have that second voice that comes in and tells them how good of a job they actually did. So if you're trying to do it on your own, I think it's very important for you to understand that you need to realize what you've actually accomplished and how far you've come instead of looking at the distance that you didn't make it. And that's really why they say that starting is the most important part. It's really taking action and making that decision that makes all the difference in the world. It would be like you trying to go into the gym and benching 500 pounds. It's not going to happen. However, you can probably start with 100 pounds and you can probably increment that little by little until you get to 500 pounds because you've got to build those muscles. Same thing is with the brain, same thing is with our habits. We've got to build those routines and those systems. So starting, maybe you want to do $1,000 a month in saving, that's great, but maybe you can't do that right now. Maybe your biggest capacity is that you can do $300 a month. So you start with that. It's easier to go from 300 to 1,000 than it is from 0 to 1,000 or 300 to 600 to 900 to 1,000, right? There might be stages in between. And that's all part of your growth and in that process, because the more you do it, the more you get into it, the easier it gets. It's almost like an exponential growth curve. For my structured or engineered people out there, the exponential growth curve, it looks like it's doing nothing for a long period of time. This is the same thing that's true with compounding interest and compounding effects in your business and everything that compounds. It looks like there's little or no result. And then all of a sudden, it goes up tremendously fast. And that's where a lot of times you'll hear people say, well, I was at 10 or 15 years into an overnight success because it was all of those years seeing little or no growth, that there was compounding that happened that really allowed that exponential curve to happen. And same is true for you, as long as you don't quit and you take the gains that you get and then you condition yourself to get better along the way. Hope this was super helpful for you. Make sure you smash that like button and also hit the subscribe as well. That way you can see when there's new content that comes out, and I will see you guys later.